That is a lot of lettuce. Guten Yardening, everybody! Well, today I'm going to talk to you about 5 good leafy greens that graciously grow great in our indoor garden. Yeah, you try saying that 5 times fast. Let's go. This leafy green is Castelfranco Radicchio. If you've never had radicchio before, or you don't recognize it, it's probably because most of the radicchio you see is the fully mature version, which is often a really nice green with a whole bunch of burgundy red flecks. And that's what this one will turn into. This Castelfranco Radicchio is going to be a little bit more bitter than most of the other greens that we're growing here. And so what people often do to remove some of that bitter flavor, once this hits maturity, they will grill the heads of radicchio. And that cuts down on some of that bitter flavor. Now we could harvest this at full maturity, which is about 3 months, 85 to 90 days is full maturity, or we could eat the greens when they're younger like this and keep feeding off of these. What I think we're going to do is probably eat some of these young, and then we'll also transplant a few of these here into the raised bed and let them grow to full maturity. So we'll see the difference and decide which ones we like the best. Now, why do we eat radicchio? Why do we eat any of these greens? They're super healthy. Again, people make claims all the time as to what some of the benefits are, whether it's fighting cancer, etc. We're eating them because we know leafy greens are a healthy part of our diet. Now, one thing I do find really interesting is that different countries have different names for their vegetables. For example, in the US, when we talk about arugula, people in England, for example, refer to it as rocket. I'm curious if radicchio is known by a different name to many of you. I know that some people refer to it as a chicory, like a chicory leaf, and you can also eat the roots as well, so that'd be the chicory root. But I'm curious, what is this radicchio known as to you? This is Hedou tiny bok choy. Now, if I said that first part of the name incorrectly, I apologize. I looked everywhere to try to find proper pronunciation because I think that's really important, and I couldn't find it. So if you know how to say it differently than that, please let me know. But this is a miniature, a dwarf bok choy, and you can actually already see, I think, the little bunches that we're going to cut off as they get a little bit bigger. And actually, these are pretty close to mature size. The mature size for these are about 3 to 4 inches. What's really awesome about this bok choy, well, one thing, it doesn't need a ton of sunlight or a ton of light in general. And since we're growing inside and we can determine the amount of light, and that's absolutely fine. But realistically, if you're trying to grow this kind of bok choy, or really bok choy in general, you're going to find that you could probably grow it on a kitchen table as long as there's enough light. Now, this bok choy is known for being really nice and crunchy, as is most bok choy. But what you might not know about this is that it's part of the brassica family. Now, typically when we think of brassicas, we think of things like our cabbage, our kale, our broccoli, but bok choy is in that same family. And brassicas are also known as cruciferous vegetables. And cruciferous vegetables are extremely high in vitamins. So when you add cruciferous vegetables like this bok choy to your diet, you are going to create a vastly improved diet. Now, since this is a dwarf version of the bok choy, we're not going to be able to do one thing that I like to do with bok choy, which is to cut it off and grill it. It doesn't really have enough character to it, I think, in order to be able to do that. So my preference for this is to either eat it raw in our salads or to steam it. I love steamed bok choy, but you don't want to over steam it, and you definitely don't want to put it in water as you're cooking it, in my opinion, because then it'll absorb that water and get kind of soggy. But notice what we've planted this in, a tiny food-safe container. I'm sure you've gotten these from the store, from a restaurant, or somewhere like that. You don't want to throw them out. And so what can you do? You can plant in this. This is a nice little, basically a square foot almost, a square foot of planting space. We've got about an inch, maybe an inch and a half of soil in here, and these are growing perfectly well. And this baby bok choy only takes about 25 to 50 days to fully mature. So a lot of times the maturity is dependent on the growing conditions, but if you want to, you can start harvesting after 25 days, and you can do what we do. You can either harvest the entire bunch, or you can cut off those outer leaves and let it keep growing. And right next door to our regular bok choy, our green bok choy, is our purple lady bok choy. Now our purple lady bok choy grows taller. It's not a dwarf variety. It grows about 7 inches tall when it's fully mature. It takes a little bit longer, about 45 to 60 days for it to mature fully. But one of the benefits of eating this is that it has about triple the vitamin A that you have in your green bok choy. Triple the vitamin A, and it's super tasty and crunchy. And again, it's part of the brassica family. We know it's one of those cruciferous vegetables. It's incredibly healthy for you. Tons of vitamins, tons of fiber in here as well. And this one, because it grows up to full size and you get those really nice heads that you can harvest, well, this you can grow, depending on the time of year that you're growing it. 4 to 6 hours of sunlight, or 4 to 6 hours of light provided by these grow lights like we're doing right now, or if you have a nice windowsill or somewhere where there's direct or indirect light coming in, you're going to be able to grow these just as easily as we are. And a key feature of all of these greens that I'm going to show you today are the ability of these greens to provide antioxidants to your body, to introduce antioxidants to your body, which we need to keep us healthy. And this is a cup of curly kale. It's kind of fun to say. This is Vates Kale. It takes about 35 to 55 days for it to fully mature, and you can already see the curls, the natural curls on these leaves. The leaves grow quite nicely, and in fact, we're going to have to transplant these pretty soon. But you can use these, you can harvest them at any time you want. If you like those smaller greens that are more tender, you can harvest them after about 25-35 days. You'll see plenty of those true leaves and the greens popping up here. If you want to wait till they're a little bit bigger because you have something else in mind in terms of how you're going to use them, you can do that as well. These leaves are perfect to make into kale chips if you like that type of thing. One of the things we like to do with kale is to cut them off, dehydrate them completely, blend them up, grind them up into a powder, and then use that to flavor some of our soups. And this kale is growing in an old cereal container. And so again, this idea of growing in small spaces, if you don't have very much room in your house and you want to try growing some leafy greens that are going to benefit you and your diet, I mean, you can use any kind of food safe container, just like this one. Yes, we will transplant these if we want to see them grow up bigger. Right now we have 5 plants in here, and these 5 plants would get probably another 3 or 4 inches taller, but this kale can grow up to 2 feet tall. So what we'll likely do is we'll let this grow a few more weeks in here and transplant them into this raised bed space so we can have bigger greens going forward. But how cool is that? Look at how well this is growing in this tiny little container. That is a lot of lettuce. This is Parris Island cause lettuce. It's a romaine lettuce. If you like romaine, if you like making kimchi, this is a perfect lettuce for you. If you like eating those nice Cobb salads, you want to grow something like this. Look at these healthy, deep greens that we have going on here. Now this lettuce grows a foot tall, so there is no way we could leave this in here permanently for the 65 to 70 days that it would take for this to fully mature. But that being said, right now they're super healthy. We could eat these, but we want these to develop further. We want to get that full maturity. For now, what we're going to do is keep growing this in here, transplant it out into a few more open spaces, and let it grow up to that full mature potential. Man, this is so much food in a small space, all of it easy to grow, most of it growing to maturity in under 2 months. 2 months to get fully mature greens that are going to add an incredible amount of benefit to your diet. These 5 leafy greens grow easily and quickly in just about any setup that you can put together in any kind of container, as long as it's food safe. So we highly encourage you to try growing these, regardless of where you live. Find a little bit of space, find a little corner with some light, and see what adding a few of these beautiful leafy greens to your diet does. We hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If you did, give us a like, leave us a comment. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.